Review Board for the City of Winooski has been called to order. The Development Review Board is a quasi-judicial volunteer resident board that upholds standards and procedures as defined in the Winooski zoning ordinance. We review and make decisions on subdivisions, site plans, conditional uses, variances, and appeals of the zoning administrator's determinations. The DRB has authority through the Vermont state statute and ensures due process, protects the right of applicants, and rights of the public to participate in proposals for land development within the city. Appeals of the decisions made by the DRB are heard by the Vermont Superior Court Environmental Division and the Vermont Supreme Court. Matt Basewitz is our board chair, cannot be here tonight. Harlan Miller is our vice chair and is also not able to join us. My name is Elsie Goodrich and I am the secretary. The Winooski Development Review Board also consists of Erin Guyette, David Weisberger. Our alternates are Jordan Matt and Emily Morris, who also cannot be here tonight. The first order of business is changes to the agenda. If anyone would like to propose a change to our current agenda, please let us know now. Hearing and seeing none. We now go to public comment. Vermont open meeting laws grant an opportunity for public comment at every public meeting. If anyone would like to comment on anything that is not on the current agenda, this is your opportunity. Okay. We are going to move on to the agenda. And the first item is approval of the previous meeting minutes. I will now entertain a motion to approve the previous meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion.
I will second the motion.
Okay, all in favor say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed and all abstaining. The motion so passes. We are now moving on to our first public hearing on the conditional use review request for 94 West Canal Street, Suite 5. And is the applicant here tonight? Would like to come join us? If you could swear in, do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
All right. Take it away.
So yes, my name's Robert Berg. I'm the proprietor of Hot and Heady. We are a licensed cannabis product manufacturer, currently located in Mallett's Bay with sorry, this is a little convoluted. We currently hold one license with a couple business partners. We're kind of splitting off, applying for our own license and hoping to relocate to Winooski at the aforementioned address. That's about the long and the short of it. I don't think we need much build out. If we do, I'll find out after I meet with the fire marshal who wanted me to obtain this zoning approval first, so.
Can you describe the space that you would be moving into and what's there now?
Yes, it's currently vacant. The building's subdivided into multiple suites. This was offices, kitchen, and some classrooms for the former Centerpoint School, I believe. So already mostly built out for a kitchen. Yeah, we'll have a lower impact on the surrounding area, I would imagine, with only myself and 3 employees, and we keep to ourselves, and I imagine we'll be making less noise and creating less wastewater than a couple dozen students for sure.
What is the product and what's the manufacturing process or?
So we make chocolate and gummies primarily. Some other foodstuffs in the future, hopefully, if the state will allow, but that's the basis of our business right now. The process is pretty non-intensive. It's just a handful of pieces of equipment, manual labor, putting things in molds, taking things out of molds.
Would there be any noticeable smell from the exhaust fans?
No, we work with concentrates, so there's really no plant material smell. most of that like heavy smelling aspect is already taken care of before the product gets into our hand. We're just bringing it to temp and infusing it into the products as we make them.
I mean, I guess I have some process questions for Ravi. Like, if they do need to modify something, would that become a separate application?
It depends on the extent of the modification. Body will still need to get a zoning permit and potentially a building permit through us. So at that point, it'll be reviewed by myself and by the building code officials to determine compliance. And if there's any small modifications that needs to be made to the building, then we can probably do that administratively. But if it's something that requires an expansion of the space or any sort of changes to the space that might require conditional use review and site plan review, then we'd bring that back.
And I didn't really understand the
What do you mean?
the process. Yeah, the process of the application for a change of use, like from the regulations. Doesn't seem clear entirely what's required. Is it the conditional use that's
It's the
required?
conditional use. So industry uses in this location are conditional use, and that requires approval by the DRB before it can be permitted and occupied. So that's why the applicant is here today.
And as far as what the applicant would need to provide, it's basically only this one sentence description on the application. Is that sufficient for these purposes?
Yes. We've had a couple conversations with the extensiveness of the use and whether there would be any modifications to the site, any modifications to the building, interiors, exteriors, and it's simply a shift in the change in the type of business, essentially, and just one tenant to another tenant using the space differently. So the application packet itself is quite limited. But if there needs to be any building modifications, that's something that could be done administratively that could be discussed after this.
Is the building subdivided in any way?
Yeah, it's subdivided into 5 units. They're all more or less self-contained with their own utilities and whatnot, so we won't have any impact on any of the other units and vice versa.
Are there other tenants now? Do we know?
I believe so, but it's not really my purview.
Sure. Yeah. I'm just trying to figure.
Yeah.
So how many employees are you?
How many employees?
Yeah.
I have 3 full-time employees.
Okay. And your operating hours would be? Do you know?
We are about 8:30 to 6:30 at the latest, Monday through Thursday. Our unit is also kind of tucked back on the rear of the building, so
Is there a dock door back there that you're using?
there's not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, from what I'm aware of, also only one of the spaces is leased out, and I think they're occupying like a combined suites 1 and 2. They did not require a permit for the change in use because it was from a permitted use to a permitted use. They did go through us and building code to ensure that they were in compliance with occupying the space.
Do you have any signage?
No. No signage, extensive security. That would probably be the extent of any updates we need to do, is just install an internal security system and maybe some cameras.
So just manufacturing, not retail?
Yeah. No interest in opening that can of worms.
Yeah.
How big is the space?
It's 2,200 square feet.
Did the fire marshal have any preemptive concerns, bearing in mind that
There was concern about an oven that was already located in the space. I guess the hood system was not sufficient enough, but I'm just going to pull the oven out because I don't need it anyways. And I'll have a plumber cap the gas line, so that should be address the bulk of it, like the only thing he raised when I met with him before. But yeah, beyond that, I'll need to do a more extensive walkthrough with him to understand what other expectations he has.
Are you bringing any other substantial manufacturing equipment that,
I'm bringing in what's a Blodgett electric, toted as a ductless range or oven. That's really just run at 250 degrees to hold molds at temp for making gummies. A chocolate machine that does not draw much power, take up much footprint, and a handful of like fridges and induction burners. Yeah.
I don't think I have any other questions.
I'm good.
Arian, do you have anything to add?
Nope, almost set. Thanks.
Okay.
You may want to ask if members of the public.
Are there any comments from members of the public? Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Appreciate y'all.
Okay. And now we move on to the next public hearing. We move on to the next agenda item.
I think you can close the hearing. Typically, I'm trying to remember how you guys do it. If you guys vote to
Is it
close the
separate?
hearing or
Well,
not.
we have another item, right?
Yeah, we're not
yeah,
closing
yeah.
the public hearing, but we can close that portion
Yeah.
of the hearing.
Mhm.
Okay. We will close that. Do we motion for that?
I don't
Ready? I don't
think
think
we
so.
do.
Okay.
I don't
Okay,
think
You
we
don't?
need.
Okay.
all right. Thank you. We will now move on to our next agenda item, which is the sketch plan review for 85 West Street. Are the applicants in the room?
Let's see here.
We'll deliberate after, and he doesn't have to stay.
Right. So we will deliberate after the hearing and provide you with our decision within
45 days.
45 days. So you're welcome to stay for the rest of the public hearing if you want.
45 days?
That's the maximum.
Okay.
Yeah.
You don't have to stay for that long, though.
No.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. All right. If you could state your names
Josiah Bergeron.
Catherine Bergeron?
and if you could swear, do you affirm or swear that the testimony you were about to give is the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. If you'd like to tell us about your project.
Would you like to tell them about our project?
Uh,
We can pull up any of your materials as well, for example.
So we live at 85 West Street. I've lived there for 15 years. There's currently a two-family home in the front of the lot, and I'm hoping to subdivide and build a single-family home on the back side of the lot. I got a survey from Button, that's in the works, and then also I realized that we need to do water and wastewater design, so I wanted to just talk to you guys and make sure that you didn't have any objection to it before, I kind of took the next steps of doing all that. So we currently live there now. We got married last August, and
So our residence is a two-family home. This would be one-family home in the back side of the lot. So if you care to.
so we're hoping to start a family, and we don't have enough room. So ideally, we would be able to build this house and move back there.
So the current building is a duplex, you said?
Yeah.
Correct, yep.
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 So that's the site. It's the duplex in the front. Currently, there's a garage right on the back corner.
Yeah.
Yep.
There, so it'd be taking down the garage, adding parking spaces for the duplex, a couple for the new single-family home, which would have a garage on the right side. you know, everything is conforming with setbacks, and I did do the lot coverage, and it's just over 50% for both combined, so I would have to adjust that, and I don't know, you know, for like impervious, like for the driveway or something, if there is an impervious option that would be, you know,
I've heard,
doable or not. I haven't really delved into that
yeah.
as much, but
Eric, who was the previous zoning administrator, typically didn't count that because it has to be maintained, and they don't have any way of knowing if it really is functioning.
yeah.
So he didn't allow pervious paving to count as non-paved. I'm saying that very clearly. If there's a driveway, whether it's pervious or impervious, it counts against the lot coverage.
Right, got you. No, I mean, because it's so dense that it's,
Right.
you know, I don't, it's, yeah.
So your 50% calculation is just the houses themselves, not including the pavement at this time?
So as it sits now, I think I did it and I submitted it with the rest of the documents, but I think it was at like 51%. When it would, you know, ideally it'd be at 50% or less.
So this is your drawing, but you're having a survey done as well, or?
Yeah, yeah, so this is, you know, I'm a builder too, so I have AutoCAD and I just drew this up.
Yeah, I got the survey last night, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't able to send it to you because I didn't think that would be adequate time for you to look at it and then come prepared for this meeting.
So I have a couple questions that could help you as you're developing it. From the GIS, it looks like the building is right on the property line, the existing one. I don't know if that's, I mean, I know that's not the actual survey.
It's pretty darn close.
So what is this 5'6" that you show on the side of this building in this drawing?
Okay, so let me step back. When I did this, I just looked at the lot size, and that's what I drew it to. You know, so it's 68 by 2, whatever, and so I basically just did that for this plan.
Yeah. So I think the survey will be critical to know where that is. I'm not sure about this. I mean, I have another point that I want to bring up, but I think changing this to the planned unit development means there are different setbacks. So you may need to ask for a waiver for the new building, the existing building.
It's 15 feet.
I think it's 10.
I think it's 10.
So I think for the planned unit development, it seems it's somewhere it says that, and we've run into this before, that the rear setback goes all the way around the building.
Yeah.
So that's 10 feet.
Yes. In this case, this building would be non-conforming and would just be grandfathered in for that.
But would that hold with a change to the planned unit development? You know what I mean? Like it's an existing building on a non-conforming lot, but now
Yeah.
you're asking to change that to something that has different requirements.
Right. Typically, when everything, as long as everything else is conforming and the non-conforming aspect isn't becoming more non-conforming as a result, then it is permissible. And in this case, that non-conforming aspect, that side yard setback, isn't being decreased.
Right.
So we're not creating any new non-conformities by allowing for the setback. And everything else meets the dimensional requirements.
What about can we zoom up a little to the new building? Because I thought that one maybe was, so 6'9"
Mm-hmm.
so that would have to move over.
Yes,
to make
that would
work.
potentially have to shift over. Now, with this proposal too, I think one question that I asked you with the plans too is whether you'd even want to go through the PUD route and whether you'd be able to develop with 50% lot coverage.
Well, and so that brings up the next point, because it's kind of like late, because so I did get approved for financing from what was New England Federal and now Sunrise, but they won't give me a loan for a single-family house unless it has its own lot. So if I did a single-family home and had that be part of 85, they just wouldn't give me the loan because they want it to be its own entity that's, you know, could be purchased or sold or whatever.
Yeah, our first conversations were to create a secondary principal structure on a lot. And so that would require PUD approval, and then Josiah came back to me and said, like, well, I need to draw on a lot line somewhere.
And this was literally like, I found that out like last week. So I'm like, okay, well, at least it's in, and I'm just trying to figure it out. Because originally I was just like, yeah, okay. That's great because we just want the space, and if it just means that that's part of 85 and it's all, one lot with 2 structures, like I'm good with that. The bank's like, no. So I'm like, okay.
So does a planned unit development satisfy that? I mean, doesn't the land normally, it's still one lot, isn't it? But
No, it's one entity, but it's multiple lots. So each lot could be conveyed separately as separate lots. But for any future development purposes, the entire PUD entity would have to be reviewed as a whole because the development is viewed as one project. So if somebody were to come back and wanted to add another unit or tear down the house and put in like 2 or 3 more units, then that would have to come back to you for approval as an amendment to the PUD. But if they were separate lots based on current zoning today, that could potentially be approved through an administrative process or a more limited scope review because 2-unit dwellings, 3-unit dwellings are permitted uses in that zoning district. So that would be the difference. But overall, creating new lots within a PUD is allowed. And you could create as many lots as you'd like within the PUD, but the entire project PUD would be viewed as a whole instead of as individual lots separately.
Because when I originally bought the property 15 years ago, it was actually classified as 85, 87. And then I forget how many years back, for ease of, tax purposes and all that stuff, the city combined it to just 85.
I can't keep track of the parking regulations. How many spaces are required?
1 space per unit,
So 3 total spaces?
3 total spaces.
Is there a garage in the new building?
Yes, in the new building.
Yeah, so the garage is on the right-hand side. So basically where the driveway goes into, that's a single bay garage.
And then could we scroll back down to the new? So I'm not going to tell you what to do, but if you need more lot coverage, you maybe don't need the outdoor parking in front of the new house because you have the 1 space. I mean, that's just an option I'm throwing out
Correct.
there.
That's correct.
Yeah.
It's just more of a, I was just kind of thinking about it practically, like if you had, I don't know, because it's a 2-bedroom upstairs and it's a 3-bedroom downstairs, so obviously, more parking is more convenient. But there is on-street parking as well, so.
Because I think you also need to count the sidewalk in the impervious calculation. I don't know if that was part of your number already.
If it's
If it's on the lot.
If it's on the lot. With GIS, those lines can be off plus or minus 5 feet.
Yeah.
And typically sidewalks are within the city right of way. So, yeah, I think with the survey we'll get a better understanding of where
Yeah, I
that
think-
sidewalk lies.
Yeah, the survey I think is going to answer a lot of these questions.
Yep.
Have you had any conversations with emergency services for access to the new property?
I'm sorry, I can't.
Sorry, have you had any conversations with emergency services about accessing that back property?
I have not. But as it sits now, it's wide enough for two 2 vehicles to, go side by each on the driveway.
And we've had a few like this in the recent past, right, where it got
Yeah.
worked out with the fire department.
Yeah,
They were-
West
they were
Allen.
okay with it.
That West Allen one. It's too narrow.
But there was one
They
on
figured
West
it
Street,
out.
wasn't there?
Can't remember.
I think they just have concerns with putting the arms down on the new fire truck for the stabilization.
Yeah.
Right.
Any new utility work that will be required? Water lines? sewer?
Yeah, so it'd be new water, sewer, natural gas, and electrical
Coming from the street or
service
coming from
coming from the street.
Yeah.
And that was my next, thing. I just wanted to make sure, everything was good with the city and the board here, and before I kind of took those next steps of, more finalized design and, because it is costly, and I, want to just be sure that, it's acceptable before we really.
It appears there's no fencing currently between you and your neighbors.
There's a fence all the way around. And I submitted, I don't know if you can see the photos, but I did submit photos of the lot.
Oh, I see it in the back, yeah.
And you can see the wood in the back.
I don't think we got photos. I think
No,
it's just Google
I didn't
Maps.
include the photos,
Yeah.
just the plans.
Yeah, I'm just using Google.
And so the intent is to maintain that, leave that in place.
Yeah. Yeah, because I just actually, there was
Bring up the
an
photos.
existing fence on the south boundary line and the east boundary line, and then a couple years ago, I put the fence in on the north boundary line, which is what you're looking at right there.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of space back there, and it's kind of just like we have a garden, and like it's not really being utilized for that much.
The neighbor there, what is that building? Is that a dwelling unit or is that a garage?
That's a garage right there. That building right there is
The
a
one
garage.
on the neighbor's lot.
Yeah.
That's a garage also.
Yeah.
It's on the back side of Elm.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Is Aaron?
Aaron, do you have any questions?
I was waiting, yeah, I was gonna go back to just ask Robbie, I'm not sure I understand the PUD discussion. Do other folks understand that? I guess I'm just kind of wondering why this is a PUD if it's separate lots. Like, what's the advantage of this being a PUD versus just completely separate lots?
It's not separate lots right now.
It is separate lots right
Oh,
now.
it
as
is.
proposed. Yeah, so when,
It's proposed to be, I think, right?
Yes,
It's proposed,
yeah.
it's proposed to be subdivided.
so with the PUD, it just depends on what the final design looks like with all the impervious surfaces, wherein there could be like a transfer of lot coverage in essence, where if more lot coverage is on the front, then and if less lot coverage is on the back, and if it averages out to 50% across the entire PUD, then that could prove to be a benefit. But if it ends up being 50% and 50%, then I would suggest just doing a straight subdivision. That would be the only real benefit with doing the PUD in this case. Otherwise, yeah.
I guess though, like, I'm thinking down the road, like, if, I'm assuming that it's gonna be common ownership, right? Or you guys are gonna still own the 2-family house?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
You're still gonna own The
The lot
roadside
in front.
house, the duplex?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
both-
Yeah.
Both
Yep.
buildings.
And so I guess I'm just wondering, like, down the road, like, if you were to sell one of those, and maybe this is allowed by the UDR, but, you know, if one of those gets sold because they would be separate lots, but a PUD, are we then allowing for like a non-conforming lot in the future because of that? Or does it always stay in the PUD?
It always stays
even,
as a PUD.
even if one of them gets sold?
Yeah, even when it's
Okay.
sold, it always stays as a PUD. So,
Okay.
yeah,
I
so
think that was
the
what I-
PUD remains in perpetuity and it's linked together. So those two lots with the PUD, that's even though there's flexibility in design and layout, and you could balance out the lot coverage. The two lots are inextricably linked forever. So if any modifications were to happen mainly with density, like that's what I'm mainly thinking is like if you want to increase density on one lot, that would come back for a PUD amendment instead of just a site plan approval or even just an administrative permit. So because we'd have to make sure that that both lots are as a whole are in conformance with the regulations, not just each lot separately. So it's it's not, the PUD tool is not that, it seems like it's not that commonly used in Winooski because you haven't had the need for it, but it's, I've mainly used it a lot in more rural areas to allow for clustered development and to have common space and common areas to accommodate open space requirements of like large amounts. But in this case, it allows for like creative design and creative layout in order to balance out the requirements across both lots.
So now I'm a little confused again. Sorry. Currently, this is 2 lots.
Yes.
I thought a PUD was 1 lot that you were then allowed to develop multiple buildings on.
So you can do multiple buildings on a lot through getting a PUD approval, or you can do creative subdivision design through a PUD approval. So that could include footprint lots, smaller lots that are non-conforming, but as a whole, the parcel would be conforming as long as it meets the dimensions.
Like the lot in the
density
back doesn't have
threshold.
any street frontage,
Yeah.
Yes.
right? So it couldn't be developed separately unless we give permission for a non-conforming lot.
Well, so you can actually grant a waiver through the subdivision process for a lot without frontage as long as there is access to that back lot. So for that lot to be created in the back, it doesn't necessarily need to be a PUD. It could just be a regular subdivision.
But it's already there, that lot.
The back lot?
No, I think it's 1 lot right now.
It's 1
I think
lot right now.
Proposed to be subdivided.
It's proposed to be subdivided into 2 lots.
Correct.
So it was sold as
And-
85, 87, 1 lot.
Yes.
With 2 at, okay.
That was
Yeah.
my
So the
confusion.
addressing.
It's 1 lot right
yeah.
now. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
Okay.
The addressing is probably the confusing part. My best guess is you probably got 2 numbers, 1 for the house and 1 for the garage. Because that's typically why they would give 2 numbers to do 2 different structures, not two numbers for address. But either way, it's 1 number now, right? It doesn't really matter. But
Right.
yeah, 85. And so 87 would be the new potential lot created in the back.
So it's going to be
number-
divided, but they're going to be linked by this PUD structure, legal structure.
Yes, that's correct.
Robbie, do you know, can the PUD also, that legal document, can that also provide for access to that rear lot? Or do they need to have, I'm assuming they need to have an easement over the front lot to get to the rear lot, right?
They would need to have an easement. The PUD approval, it lives more so in the zoning files than in the land records. So that access
Okay.
would need to be in the land records to be legitimate.
Okay, yep. So access easement for utilities, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. I kind of wonder, like, I'm not sure the schedule on the project, but I do wonder if it would make sense to have another sketch plan review once you get, the information on the survey, it's tough to really kind of zero in on lot coverages and all that stuff with, what's an estimated drawing.
Yeah, and so I got the survey back from Lenny last night or yesterday afternoon. I can't remember which one it was, but it's basically the way the boundary on the I don't know if it's the tax map or if it's the city lot. It's like it's pretty much exactly how it's drawn in the city
So the
records.
fence line is almost exactly where the property line is according to the survey.
I'll just pull it all up. I have it handy. There's the survey. I will send this to you after the meeting.
Is there a fee, is there an additional fee per sketch review?
There's no fee for sketch.
No fee.
So there's only a fee for preliminary, final. I would advise that this would be a combined preliminary final just because it's a 2-lot subdivision. But that would be that. But that's where the fee is.
Yeah, and basically the way he did it here was he basically just put the new west boundary line right in the middle, east to west, kind of just dividing the lot equally that way.
Oh, this is the-
Oh yeah, you've got the easement shown on there.
Does the footprint here include the porch, or is that porch the separate line in front of it?
I believe it does include the porch.
That's the porch, yep. Porch roof. Sidewalks in the public right away. 25 feet off the center line.
The porch is the separate line, right?
I think so,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's got to be, because the stairs are going up to the porch, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other comments from the board?
I mean, I think if this is going forward as a PUD, I think that, has that decision been made yet? That's your intent?
That's something that we could talk about further too. I think that with the sketch plan, it's an informal process for you to provide comments to the applicant, and I think that's something that could be provided at this stage too, is whether you would recommend whether the applicant should go through the PUD process or whether they should look into the subdivision process and seeing if a standard subdivision would be possible, and then they could come back with a PUD proposal or a subdivision proposal at preliminary.
So
I don't know that the board should be giving direction on that, right? But more, I guess I was just curious from like a review standpoint, because if they're different setbacks or different requirements for either one, or the flexibility that you talked about, Ravi, like we just want to know that as we take a harder look at it.
Mm-hmm. Right. So the only real different setbacks are on the periphery of the PUD, and that's that 10-foot setback on the periphery. So that would have to be required. And when Lot 2, as depicted, is developed, I would make sure that wherever that building is placed would conform to that setback. Typically, with building placements as shown is more of like a reference point for you. It doesn't bind them to that particular location, but it does. Based on what's in the decision, it might specify what kinds of uses could be allowed on those lots.
If this were a regular, if it was a subdivision, what setbacks would apply to the rear lot there? Would it have a front setback or not really, because it's in the middle of the...
Front would be, let's say, front side would be 5 and rear would be 10. Let me double check that. Talking off the top of my head. Versus, I think, 10 all around.
Right, so that might allow closer placement of the house.
Yes. Yep. So front side would be 5, rear would be 10. Yes.
Are there any other implications to subdividing versus PUDing?
The only one that I see is lot coverage, wherein if there's more lot coverage being utilized by the front lot, then the back lot could offset that. So instead of requiring 50-50 on both lots, if the front lot has 60, back lot could have 40, averages out to 50, and that would meet the requirements of the zoning regulations.
So we just discussed this here. We're not going to discuss this closed, right? We're just going to offer our feedback, or do we do this in the closed session as well?
I think because it's sketch, we just discuss
There's
here.
no decision to be made, so we don't need to discuss
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, no decisions being made, so you can just discuss it.
I mean, I kind of like what you say, Aaron. I would be open to another sketch and then a preliminary final if it looks good at that point.
Yeah, I mean, it all comes down to what the applicants want to do, right? So if schedule allows for it, it might be beneficial to have another review of sketch plan once it's drawn out on the survey here. But if your schedule doesn't allow for that, then I think that's your decision to
Could you hear him?
move on.
No, I'm sorry.
He's saying it
I'm
depends
very
somewhat
hard
on your
of hearing.
schedule. I mean, we could be a little flexible. We would like to see another sketch plan with the survey, sort of like finalized, like you have it here.
Sure.
And then potentially go forward with a preliminary final combined plan. But if you don't have time for, 3 more meetings, you could go with the preliminary final right away with the risk that we might see something that we didn't notice here or don't like when the borders are finalized.
I guess I'm unclear what the process is from here on, moving forward. If there's no decision made this evening, what do we need to do for you to be able to move forward? I guess I'm unclear what the difference is here.
We would like to see the survey here by the surveyor with the footprints on it
Okay.
Okay.
of the proposed buildings. I think, Aaron, right? That's what we need to see, and a exact calculation of the lot coverage.
Okay.
Okay.
For each
For
separately.
each separate.
No,
So-
together if it's a PUD.
Together, yeah.
Just
Yeah.
kind of curious about process, understanding
Right,
like how
right.
you reviewed sketch plans in the past. Have you required surveys in the past for sketch plans?
No, but I mean, I think the applicants can bring in whatever they want from a sketch plan perspective, right? And I think what I'm hearing is like the board doesn't seem to have any issues with the project, but it's also hard to give a lot of input with the drawings that have been submitted, right? They're kind of approximate, kind of a guess on the 5'6" distances to the property lines, right? And so it's hard to give feedback on something that isn't, drawn out.
I think it's just to your benefit to submit a more finalized, accurate drawing, and you could do that either as another sketch plan, which has no, we don't make a decision. We would just say, "Yep, looks good. Go ahead and submit," or you can actually pay your fee and submit. But then there's the chance that there have to be another one. We would say, "No, there's something that needs to change here. We need to see it again." I think.
Yeah, because I mean, with preliminary,
Or we could do a preliminary
yeah,
and then a
because I mean,
final.
with the preliminary, that's when I would expect to see the survey and a formal site plan. I mean, I guess that's why I was wondering more about your process, because like I'm more used to sketch plans being more like a sketch. Like it's something that provides the applicant a opportunity for conversation before they invest money into the surveying and into the site planning at a much more rigorous level. So it just seems like to me it seems like you're asking a lot to have an applicant come back and come in with an invested site plan at a sketch level that's typically seen in a preliminary or final plan level.
Well, then I would suggest it should be preliminary and final, since it
Yeah.
wasn't provided at this point. I mean, it was provided, but at the meeting. So
Right.
like have a preliminary and then a final, even though it's a small. I think that was my thinking, like to
Okay.
gather everything
Yeah.
and have another sketch plan,
This is a
or
little hard to review.
go ahead and
Okay.
have the preliminary with the complete application and then the final.
Mhm.
I would be comfortable with that. I mean, I agree with Aaron. I don't hear any real objections to it.
No. Are we concerned about the side setback that's the 6.9 on the new one, since it is supposed to be 10?
Yeah. I think
Depends on
it-
if it's a PUD or it depends on if it's separate, right? Separate, completely separate lots.
Well, yeah, I mean, if it's a PUD and it's coming before us at 6.9, then,
It's no good.
Yeah, if it's a PUD, that won't be allowed, right?
well,
It's
we
gotta be
could
10
do a
feet.
waiver, but it would be another thing.
Yeah, I mean, you can do a waiver, and it's also a non-conformity too. So, well, actually, yeah, no, it wouldn't be allowed because that would create a new non-conformity.
I don't think we would be inclined to grant a waiver since it's possible to move the building
I
over.
think
Yeah,
in general,
there's
we
room
try
on
and
the
bring
other
things
side.
more into compliance, even
Right.
though it is a pre-existing non-compliant.
Right.
So one other thing I'd just like to point out is he did draw the existing fence line in this. That's what the,
Is that the dots?
so the actual boundary lines are the red lines,
Yep.
and the fence lines are the hash squares going all the way around.
Yep.
So the drawing that I submitted, that's not, the, it's like, it's pretty much
close to the
there.
survey. So we did the sketch and then moved forward to have the survey, and the survey shows that the sketch actually was pretty accurate.
Right,
And
so
and
on the- on the-
if anything, that north boundary line's
Actually-
just a little bit on the other
Right.
side of the fence.
Right. The survey actually proved to be a little bit
Let's
deeper
shift it
than.
over.
So on the, not sure which side, on the south side, it looks like the fence is pretty much on the property line.
Right.
Right.
And you're showing 6'9" from the property line to the
Right.
building.
Right.
And I think we're saying it needs to be 10 feet if it's gonna
Okay.
be the PUD.
Yeah, so you got 16 feet, 3
Yeah,
inches
and
on the
then
other side, you could slide it.
Yeah, yep.
Stuff like that, just refine it, kind of thing.
And anything like that is, no problem. And I think I don't know if I was going off the older setbacks,
Right.
but I think what I saw was like 5 feet. I don't know if that was,
Yeah, 5 feet is for the district. Yeah, so 5 feet for like for a standard subdivision, but it would have to be 10 feet for a PUD.
okay.
I think that's my primary concern. So if that can be accommodated, then I don't know if we need another sketch. We can just go to preliminary.
I think
If there's other concerns, though.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to recommend a preliminary and final, two more hearings. And that we'd like to see the survey with your proposed building
Mm.
drawn on it by the surveyor and a calculation of the lot coverage
Mhm.
by them.
And then there's, kind of all the normal stuff that we would look at the next time around is, drainage and access and emergency services access, snow storage, trash, and all that stuff, so.
Okay, so what's So I just need to get that done and resubmit and then come for a final.
Yeah, I think
So
Rory
it'd be
can
a
help you with the
preliminary final in
requirements for
one-
the application, for the preliminary application for, right, PUD?
Yes, so, so you're suggesting it'd be a separate preliminary subdivision meeting and then a separate final subdivision meeting. So then, yeah, so then you'd have to come twice in order to get the subdivision approved.
Okay.
Is that what you're recommending?
I think so. Yes, Aaron?
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. And Robbie, I wasn't trying to say that they have to do another sketch plan.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's up to them. We're not telling them one way or the other. I think the only thing we're saying is, if they wanted to do another sketch plan, then I think we'd be open to that with more detail. And potentially then it turns into a preliminary final in one meeting. Or we go the other route and just say, let's go to preliminary and then a separate final. So, is that what the,
Yeah,
I think that
Or-
makes,
I think that, yeah,
makes sense to
so
me.
whatever of that is more attractive.
I
Okay.
think I would be more interested in preliminary final at one stage because you meet on the third Thursday of every month. So that would put us back to December and the ground starts to freeze. So we came today kind of looking for your, your blessing to see what we need to move forward to make this happen. And yes, open to your suggestions. We can provide a sketch with the survey, and that would certainly alleviate any, gray area.
I mean, Aaron, what's the,
So,
if we could,
in the past, we have said, haven't we done this in the past where we've said, we can try to do it in one meeting, but if we start to have a lot of comments or concerns, then it could push to 2 meetings?
yeah, we
Yeah.
just haven't closed the meeting, and we've continued it right at the next hearing.
So I think either way, if we're doing sketch and then preliminary and final combined, or preliminary and then final, it's 2 months.
Well, but I think
Right.
he's saying, what about just
I think
letting
that-
them go
I think the
ahead for
applicants
the
are
preliminary
asking-
final?
Oh, okay.
I think the applicants are asking to do preliminary
Yeah.
final, like, not do another sketch plan, do preliminary final at the next meeting. And I guess, I'm trying to remember back, I think in the past, we have allowed that, but with the caveat that, if we do end up having a lot of comments and questions and revisions needed, then it does turn into a separate, we would just then treat that next meeting as preliminary and then have a final after that.
If there's too many open issues after that
I mean, I think
meeting.
it's up to the applicants, right?
Yeah.
We're just providing advice, like we can,
I think the
We can
DRB
say we'd like
decides,
to
right?
see-
Or is whether it can be preliminary.
Yeah, so you would decide whether the preliminary subdivision review is waived and whether they're allowed to go forward with a combined meeting or not. When talking to Josiah about this project, I figured this would be a combined preliminary final just because it's to me, a simple 2-lot subdivision on an infill lot. So I think that talking to them, I think we can work out the lot coverage and setback issues and provide a finished product for you in a combined meeting. I'm very confident about that.
Yeah,
But
I'm pretty comfortable with it. I think they can go ahead that way.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, wonderful.
Do you have any other questions about?
No, thank you
No,
guys
I
very
don't think
much.
so.
We're just
getting
trying to
comfortable
figure
with
it
the
out.
process and making sure we're staying within the guidelines and
So are we apparently.
that's good.
And yeah, as soon as, I'll be able to have, everything for you guys by the next meeting and we can,
What's the
I
deadline?
just wanted, some sense of surety that like it's definitely, a feasible thing, because it is costly and
Yeah, I don't
I
see any,
kind of
I
went
don't
out
see
on
any
a
red
limb,
flags. It
kind of
seems
went
like
out on a
good-
limb with the
good
survey,
project.
but it's like the survey's $5,000 and then they have to get
Right.
the water and the wastewater, you know, engineering and that design finalized
Yeah.
with the state, and like it just, you know, it
That's-
adds up quick.
That's why I asked. I was like, do you guys usually review surveys at Sketch? I was like, that seems kind of odd. So.
I think we've seen that a lot in the past, though, right?
Huh.
Like,
Yeah, but usually for bigger, for more than two, I think.
yeah.
As far as emergency services, is there something we can do in the meantime to also get that up to speed for next meeting? Would that be part
I
of?
think Eric may have often facilitated
Yeah,
that
so once I
communication.
receive the application, I'll circulate it with other
Okay.
city staff to make sure that they're able to access the building for emergency services, that they have no issues, and that your project doesn't cause any undue
Right.
impacts on the nearby neighborhood and on any services that we provide.
Okay. Thank you,
Okay.
thank you.
Thanks for planning to provide more housing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like we're running out of room. Thank you guys very much. Appreciate your time. And,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
guess we'll see you next month.
All right.
Sounds good.
We'll be in touch.
Okay. Thank you, Robbie.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Next agenda item is city updates.
Yeah. I figured I should probably give you something a bit more detailed because there seems to be a lot of things that the long range side is working on that are sneaking up and might catch you off guard, and you'll be like, oh, we have to administer this now. Oh, okay. So, yeah, I that's where I wanted to start with just like a long range review of all the things that the Planning Commission and Housing Committee are talking about at this stage with inclusionary zoning, TDM requirements, and the Act 181 changes. I think the most pertinent are the Act 181 changes that are gonna have a public hearing next month with the Planning Commission. Those are a few minor changes to the zoning regulations. With inclusionary zoning and TDM, those are much longer conversations that we're having with the Planning Commission and stakeholders. So part of that, we're gonna have a developers roundtable to get some more feedback about what we're thinking and the feasibility of it all. And to get some points on how we can adjust, possibly modify to make sure that it's conducive for everybody in the community. And then with the same goes with the replacement units. So thinking about how do we ensure that there is a diverse housing stock for people in the city, and ensuring that there are different options when new housing does come online. So it's not just single unit studios, that it's single units, 2 units, 3 units for different households and different needs. And then just wanted to provide like a current planning update of at least what I've done since I've started. I've received, 13 permit applications? And I've got a few that I got to review and look through and sign up on. But other than that, yeah. And let's see, I've gotten a good amount of queries about building housing like what the Bergerons are proposing, gentle infill in our residential neighborhoods of ADUs, duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, like adding a unit in like in the backyard or above a garage, things like that. So yeah, that's the gist of it. More details are in the memo.
How's the hotel coming?
Which
Which one?
I don't know.
Redstone slow on there.
Any of them. The one over the parking garage. The one.
Oh yeah, I think that's moving along pretty well. They're working on the garage right now. They got a permit for it. Had some good conversations with those folks, and they're looking forward to building the hotel. So I should hear from them soon about the next stages for that project.
Great. Seems like it's going to happen. If they start the bottom, usually finish the top.
Right? Yeah.
Is there anything with the other hotel next to the what's that lot called, lot 7, lot 9?
The lawsuit one?
The lawsuit one?
What's his name? Dubrov or
Winooski
Dubrow?
Hotel Group or something?
Probably still getting sued by him, maybe.
I got nothing right now, so.
All right.
Okay. What do we do? Other business? Do we have any other business? All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the public hearing.
So motion?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Opposed, no abstaining. Motion passes.